Draft. Graziano has got NFL draft overreactions on this Monday, and let's begin in Pittsburgh. Graz, if someone were to say the Steelers made a huge mistake not drafting a quarterback before round 6, is that an overreaction?
If someone were to say, as if no one's saying that. Yeah, it's an overreaction. I think this was a group of quarterbacks that just wasn't viewed as potentially special or franchise-altering, and to force one, like the Steelers did with Kenny Pickett a couple years ago in the first round of the draft, that can create as many problems as it solves. So they had other needs at other positions they wanted to address with their early picks. They end up taking Will Howard in the 6th, who's a guy they like as a prospect, and Aaron Rodgers is still out there as a possibility.
Agree or disagree?
I somewhere in the middle, because I got to think that the Pittsburgh Steelers have a deal with Aaron Rodgers. They are too good of an organization, Greeny, to go in the season with that quarterback depth chart, especially when you just gave up a second-round pick and $30 million for DK Metcalf. I am just hard-pressed to think that Mason Rudolph's their opening day quarterback. I got to think there's a close to agreement in place with Rodgers.
Let's go to the next one, Graziano. If someone said Travis Hunter is the best thing that could have happened to Trevor Lawrence, is that an overreaction?
It's not an overreaction. I mean, look, this adds another target for him in the past. First of all, what is not to like about Travis Hunter?
Yeah.
He crushed everything on Thursday night. But Brian Thomas Jr., first-round pick last year. Now you have 2 studs you can throw the ball to. And plus, I think this is good for Trevor Lawrence, who's still kind of working through trying to live up to his draft pedigree, and there's a lot of pressure on him. This guy's going to be a focal point for a lot of the attention in Jacksonville.
We know that Trevor Lawrence has had some issues in the interception department, so maybe Travis Hunter will help him out. He's unbelievable talent, but he's very slight. I've always said big people beat little people. That's always, when you give up this amount of capital, draft capital for a guy like Travis Hunter, I just don't know if he's going to affect the game for as much capital as they gave away.
That's the concern.
They think they got 2 players.
Yeah, and is that realistic? I have found that a fascinating part of this conversation going all the way back to the beginning of the process. In the meantime, let's get to the third one here. If someone were to say Jackson Dart is going to save the job of the Giants coach and their general manager and everybody else, is that an overreaction?
It's an overreaction just because we've seen so many instances over the last 5-6 years where you draft a quarterback in the first round and the head coach is out a year later or by the end of the year. It happened with 2 separate teams last year, right, with the Patriots and the Bears.
Right.
And if you draft a first-round quarterback, it doesn't save you. These guys are going to be judged on wins and losses and how they do this year. And if you get to the end of this season and Jackson Dart looks like he's on the ascent and you feel good about him, like the Patriots do about Drake May, maybe a bad example because they did fire the coach, but then that gives you some help. But I think it's going to be about showing some progress this season.
Schrager, here's my feeling on it, one way or the other. I have no idea what will wind up happening with the coach and the general manager. I thought the Giants had an unbelievably good draft in a variety of ways. I happen to love Cam Scatterbo, but that's a different topic. They got the player they wanted at the top in Abdul Carter, and they got the quarterback they wanted, whether it's the one that we thought they should take or not. They had their choice of all the rest of the quarterbacks, and they took the one they wanted. I thought the Giants had an outstanding draft.
I think you have to look at the last 10 months for the New York Giants organization and also the Giants fan base. The Hard Knocks series was very damaging for Joe Schoen, the general manager, in a public way. And then when Saquon Barkley comes out and has the season he has, and Xavier McKinney comes out and has the season he has, this fan base has been in a rut. The team was in a rut, and I think the reputation of the men making the decision was in a rut. This is the first time Giants fans have been excited since last July.
Yeah.
And it's not just because of Dart and Carter. To your point, they get Cam Scatterbo, they get Marcus Bowe, who they really like, and they get Alexander out of the MAC, who everyone's excited about. I could tell you this, doing the work on the Giants, and I've tried to say it as many times here that they might trade back and Dart would be the guy. I learned this weekend, Jackson Dart has been Brian Daboll's guy since January.
Yeah.
Since January. They kept that close to the vest. They met with Shador a million times. They loved Jackson Dart. Whether he's the quarterback or not, they got their quarterback, and I think that's huge for a Giants fan to hear.
Greeny, just to add to that, what I really liked about it was the juxtaposition that they only gave up 2 third-round picks to get their quarterback. 1 pick later, the Falcons gave up a 1 next year for a pass rusher that there's a lot of questions about. So I thought the Giants executed a really well-developed strategy incredibly well over 3
Now,
years.
you scout these guys. Do you believe Jackson Dart is ready to be a starter in his rookie season?
Not initially. I think Russell Wilson was brought in to start on opening day. I think it's important that this team gets off to a good start. I do like Dart. I think it's going to take him some time.
It's another part of how well they handle this process. They've got the guy there. I mean, Russell Wilson is the perfect person to start until Dart is ready.
Not only a third-round pick to get him, but they had two, and they gave the lesser of the two. They gave pick 99 instead of pick 65. That would have, to trade up higher, they might have had to give up more.
What did you think of how the Giants handle this NFL draft?
I thought it was fantastic. Like, we've been talking, the whole conversation as it relates to the Giants, pre-draft was, are they going to take a quarterback at 3? Are they going to do this? No, they took the blue chip prospect at 3 and said, you know what? We're going to be able to trade back up in the first round and still get the quarterback that they want. And then, like you pointed out, Mike, they didn't have to give up a king's ransom to go back in the first round to get their guy. I thought it was fantastic.
The only question is, ultimately, Jackson Dart's going to be compared to the 3 guys they passed on last year: J.J. McCarthy, Michael Penix, and Bo Nix, who had an unbelievable rookie year. So that's something that they're going to have to live with. But if Dart turns out to be okay, all that noise.
I'd also be careful. A lot of Giants fans are saying, look what Daboll did with Josh Allen. Look what Daboll did with Josh Allen. Jackson Dart does not have the physical traits of Josh Allen. However, what they loved is that Jackson Dart had to be physically told to leave the building every night at 10:30 at Ole Miss. You cannot be here any later. He has the work ethic that's necessary, especially in this market.
And a quick reminder, I know you know this, but if the Giants had taken one of those quarterbacks, they wouldn't have Malik Neighbors right now, who might wind up being Jackson Dart's very best friend that he ever had in his entire life as this thing plays out. I thought they...
Day 3, round 5, pick 144. Shedeur Sanders had to wait longer than expected to find out where his NFL story begins, putting an end to one of the furthest and highest profile draft slides in recent memory. Sanders heading to Cleveland, where he told reporters, quote, "I'm going to fit in perfectly." And he's thankful for the opportunity for people to, quote, see the real me. We see the real Dan Graziano. And that was the what. Dan is here for the why. Dan, why did Shedeur Sanders fall to the 5th round?
Randy, it starts with the fact that teams just really didn't view him as an elite quarterback prospect. This year's draft, outside of Cam Ward, was thought to be fairly thin on quarterback, and he didn't really do anything to separate himself from the rest of the pack. Giants ended up liking Jackson Dart better. The Saints ended up liking Tyler Shuck better, etc. But then, as Friday night came and went, and the Dylan Gabriels of the world were being selected, that's when you started to hear, when you talk to people around the league, thoughts of, why did this happen? How did he slide all the way out of the first 3 rounds, ended up being the first 4? There was a thought that maybe they could have handled the pre-draft process better, didn't throw at the combine, didn't go to the Senior Bowl. Some teams had positive interactions with him in interviews, some had negative ones. And there was a sense that maybe, that Deion Sanders, to the extent that he was controlling the pre-draft process, might not have done Shedeur any favors. But, you see there, he's happy. The family's happy. He's in a good spot. So it may all work out for the best in the end.
He's excited to get to work. In the hours since the draft has ended, what's been the reaction around the league, Dan?
You mean that he fell to the 5th? I think people were a little surprised, but I also think that most people I talked to didn't see him as a first rounder anyway. So once you get past that, but I think fundamentally one of the key things you keep hearing is he's in a good spot in Cleveland. He's got a chance. This is their quarterback depth chart, which is amazingly 3 first-round picks and 2 rookies. But Watson's not going to play. And if you have to beat out Dylan Gabriel, Kenny Pickett, Joe Flacco, I think he's going to have the opportunity this offseason and in camp to do that. So not every place he got drafted would have offered him that opportunity, but given how wide open the quarterback competition is in Cleveland, it may be a good spot for him.
You mentioned day 2 and Friday. Sanders actually received a prank call during day 2 of the draft, the call being from the son of Falcons defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich. Both the Falcons and Ulbrich.
Nhìn cái người đã thô lỗ bán nó đùi. Cháu rằng người đã quay trở lại với cây cỏ mềm. Hôm nay mình sẽ hướng dẫn các bạn làm vòng bằng hạt nhựa. Bây giờ mình sẽ bắt đầu làm. Nói chuyện với khách hàng để ra tiền, nói chuyện với kéo.